Hey, what's up, shitheads? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be doing a long-term review on what life has been like since getting my Altis Sigma here. Now, I've had this bad boy since December 2024. I'm going to be talking about some of the things I really like about this bike and some of the things I'm not too fond of. So, what do you say? Stick around and let's get right into it. Come on, let's get going. Right off the bat, I think this is hands down the best looking E-Moto on the market. I've had an E-Ride 2.0 and a Telaria MX-5. And even now that I'm really familiar with these bikes, I still see those, and at a glance, I can't tell you which one's which until I get a good look at it. However, you see an Altis Sigma, whether it's 1919, the 1916, or the red or black, you know immediately you're looking at an Altis Sigma because this is a really nice looking bike. Mostly I've left this thing completely stock. However, you eagle-eyed viewers might notice I have a fat set of ODI bars on mine. That's nice. These are more of an MX style bar. They're risers. I like the middle section here. It makes it look more like an actual legitimate dirt bike. And you know what, guys? If you're in the market for an Altis Sigma, you're in luck. Because today you're going to be invited to the deal zone. If you buy an Altis Sigma from Ragrets, you can add any set of 7/8 ODI bars to your cart, and you'll get those absolutely for free with the purchase of your Altis Sigma. But guys, if you already have your Sigma and you're interested in purchasing the bars, well, you can also use coupon code STC5 to save yourself 5% off of most parts at Ragrets. Sales pitch aside, guys, I think most of you are probably familiar with the specs of the Altis Sigma by now. But for those of you guys who've been living under a rock, we'll do a little refresher course here. This is a 98 volt system, 35 amp hour battery. Top speed on this bad boy is about 70 miles an hour. This is the 1919 version. The MX version is a 16-inch rear wheel. Top speed about 60 or so on that. I prefer the 1919 because I don't really do any hardcore, meaningful off-roading. Big boy, 260 millimeter front rotor, super thick, very nice quality front rotor. The brakes on this are dirt bike style brakes, really nice beefy calipers. Got these robust handles. I really like the brakes on this bike overall. I feel like they've addressed most things on these bikes that a lot of people upgrade already. These pegs are already nice, CNC looking already. Good, nice looking pegs. Get a shot of the rear rotor here. I believe the rear is a 240 or so. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. The rear is not as big as the front, but it's just as thick. It's really, look at that caliper. Pretty sure at this point, all three of the big brands use all the same brakes. Some of the things that people complain about on this bike right off the bat are the suspension. The suspension is a bit soft on this bike. However, for the type of riding I do, and I feel for the type of riding most people do, it's going to be fine. But if you're going to do any like big jumps or meaningful drops, you're probably going to want a more stiff suspension because this suspension is nice for what I do. On the bottom of this stanchion here, there's also a Schrader valve, so you can add air to the suspension. I think it takes up to 150 PSI, so it can give you a little more support if you do that. I really like the looks of the plastics on this bike. However, they're easily removable, and that brings me to one of the things I don't like about this bike right off the bat is I have cracked my plastics already. You can see here there's a crack. I always say I don't say it's any fault of the bike. It's due to me mostly. And part of that is because this bike weighs 200 pounds. I live on the second story of a building. And when I need to carry this thing up the stairs, I inevitably grab it right here and put some weight there and crack, snap the plastics. This latest crack in here, I did actually transporting the bike here. I didn't have it on a rack. I tilted it on the side a little bit, put some weight on that plastic, and it cracked it. So plastics are not the most durable thing in the world, but I like the way they look. This, to me, this looks like a dirt bike, and that's what I want it to look like. However, it does have some pros and cons because it looks like a dirt bike. So if you're riding around on the street, you're not going to be flying under the radar because this thing looks more like a dirt bike than those other bikes. Close up of the hairpin motor on this. These are supposed to be more efficient or something. I don't know. But there's technology going on inside of that motor that's good for you. That makes the good performance inside of there. And this is a gearbox bike, so if you look in the back, it's got this big gearbox which transmits the power as opposed to the E-Ride that has a belt drive on this side, goes through a jack shaft. This and the Telaria use a gear drive. However, this gear drive is much more robust than the Telaria. Get these nice thick spokes in the rear. Now, one of the things I've heard people complain about is not on the rear hub here, but if you look on the front, the spacing on the hub is pretty narrow. So that doesn't give you quite as much support on the front wheel. So these are more susceptible to bending side to side. I've actually bent my front wheel, but that was my fault because I put it in the rack and the bike tilted over and I bent it. But if you do ride these things hard, it's more susceptible to side bending because the front hub is not spaced very wide. If you look in there, that's only like 1.5 inches. My biggest complaint on this bike is by far the weight. This is a heavy bike. While I'm out riding it, it doesn't bother me one bit. This is a 200-pound bike. The problem for me is I live on the second story of an apartment, as I mentioned before. I need to drag this thing up and down the steps every single time I come or go, and that is no fun task. I do take out the battery, but even without the battery, this bike weighs 150 pounds, and I get quite the workout going up and down the stairs, which does actually have some benefits, believe it or not. Now, when I walk up the stairs without a bike, I feel light as a feather, and my legs are getting quite as strong. But the downside is I don't really want to leave the house as much because this bike is heavy. But overall, I really love riding this bike, and you know what, guys? What do you want to do? Stand around and talk about the bike and just point at it? No, we're going to do what this bike is meant to do and go take it for a ride. So what do you say, guys? Let's get out there on the trail. All right, guys, here we are on the Altis Sigma. If you guys aren't familiar, this bike uses NFC. You tap it on the side of the screen to turn the bike on or off. You have two keys, one red, we set for turbo, black is the regular. I'm actually not kind of a fan of the NFC because when you have a key in the ignition, you can just get off the bike, you turn off the key and the bike's off. With NFC, you inevitably got to pull the NFC out of your pocket, and it gets you in scenarios where you can actually, if you forget your NFC or you lose it somewhere, you won't be able to turn on or off your bike. So I kind of prefer the key. Here we are in normal mode. I'll give you a really brief rundown of the modes here. There's 4 to choose from. You push this gear button in to select. So eco mode on this bike is slow as heck. This bike has like the least powerful, weakest eco mode out of any bike I've ridden. It looks like we're going up to 18 miles an hour. I mean, which is nice. If you're riding with a bunch of e-bikers, I guess you could stay in eco mode. Anybody in the world could ride this bike on eco and not get themselves in trouble. I find myself typically riding the majority of the time in normal mode, as we see here. And I just want to say, guys, that I'm out here in Urrington, Nevada. If I lived out here, I would ride E-Motos all the time because you can get from one place to the next. There's dirt trails everywhere. This is like a dirt biker's paradise. But as you can see, normal mode's pretty powerful. You can get up to about 38 miles an hour in normal. Most of the time I'm riding in this because I just don't need to go any faster. I'm in sport mode now, and now it starts to mean business. This bike is cooking. We're going into the wind right now. We're going over 50, 55, 56, 57. Okay, let's go right to race mode. Woo! 60, 62, 63. We are going into the wind. 64, 65. I don't think I'm going to be able to get up to the usual 70 because I am going into a wind. I can feel the bike blowing around, but this bike, the heaviness comes with its benefits, and the main benefit to me is this bike is stable as heck. I don't feel like it's shaking. I don't feel like I'm in risk of getting out of control at all. This bike is it's planted on the road, so the weight serves a purpose. And I can also say I really do like these ODI bars. Give a like to how scenic is this out here. Isn't this cool? There's these surfaced roads everywhere, and once we get closer to the mountains in the backdrop there, we're gonna be able to go on more climbs and stuff, and stay tuned because that's where we're headed. And the people around here, they do this weird thing where everyone waves at you out in the country. Woo, it's cooking right along, baby. So this suspension is perfect for stuff like this, bumpy roads. I think where you're going to start getting to the limitations of the suspension is when you start going on jumps or big drops or anything like that. It just doesn't have the support for the heavier weights and the big drops. So I wanted to bring up range. I've had this bike for multiple months, done a bunch of rides on it. I've easily gotten 40 miles of range on this bike more than once. I've seen people that say they get way less than that, and most of those people have been in colder climates. You don't get good range in cold weather, and that really manifests itself on this bike. I've ridden around LA a bunch of times, over 40 miles on a one charge and using normal mode. You're gonna use race and sport with that 21 peak power, 21, 22 kilowatt peak power, you're gonna burn through this battery in no time. So range is highly dependent on how you ride, and that's not a specific characteristic to this bike. Any E-Moto or any electric device is gonna be like that. Another wave, another successful wave in the book. So yeah, guys, we're still in normal, and this thing just gets up and goes. I think so many people get so caught up on the specs, how fast these bikes can go, and like, oh, this doesn't do 80. It's like, really? This is the same size, or not smaller than a lot of the e-bikes I review, and this bike does 70. How fast do you want to go on something that's the size of a mountain bike? I get this thing up to 70 a couple times, and that's just because I'm mainly like doing the tests for the channel and stuff. You don't really want to be riding this thing 70, especially if you're going to be riding off-road. This bike isn't big enough, and it doesn't, there's a multitude of reasons why you don't need to be going 70 miles an hour. I love these bars. At first, it was visually so much different than a stock bar. It took me a minute to get used to it. But now riding them, I'm much more comfortable, and I like this center section. I don't know what this is called, but these MX style bars, I think it just makes the bike look so much cooler. You see something in Nevada, 80% of Nevada is BLM, Bureau of Land Management land. You can pretty much just go anywhere you want out here, as long as it's not clearly labeled as no trespassing. So far, I'm at 86%. 4.2 miles in. I'm not riding slow at all today, so normal mode is plenty fast. I love this bike, it's great. My biggest complaint with this bike is just the weight, and if I had it in a garage, I wouldn't have worried about the weight at all. This suspension, I can hear it working. Oh, another complaint, something I wanted to bring up, is you're not really hearing it right now, but the chain guard on this bike will really make some noise. So you find yourself, if this chain is even slightly loose, the chain guard makes tons of noise. The chain will slap against it. So I tightened it up. It's not an issue on this ride, but a lot of the times when you're riding this thing around, you watch other videos of people's on their Sigmas, you'll hear that chain slapping all around, which is quite annoying. It's a simple fix. You can even take it off, or you can drill some holes and make it not stay so close to the chain. This suspension is great. I know people are like, oh, it's soft, blah, 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 but look at me, I'm just flying around on this bumpy road, and it just eats all this stuff right up. So if I find myself in a situation where I see a big rut coming up, all I do is stand up off the saddle and then let the suspension eat it up even more. Here we come into this rutty area here. Woo! Woohoo! Okay, I felt the suspension in the front go pretty deep on that one. But that was a pretty big dip. Yeah, guys, this suspension's pretty good. I do agree. It could have some more support to it. Maybe if they had two options, you can pick your spring weight on this bike. But I think for the most way people ride, let's be honest, how many people do you see riding these on the street as compared to off-road? This suspension is fine for me. Now here we have a steeper hill climb here. And one thing I found with all these E-Motos is these things have so much torque. It doesn't matter what drive mode you're in, you're going to be able to go up any hill you want. The limiting factor is wheel speed. So if it's loose enough terrain, you're going to need to keep the speed of the wheel up high enough where it just keeps going. But this, look at this, no problem at all. Just going right up it. That's a steep hill. None of the e-bikes I review would make it up that hill. And I just did it on normal mode, no problem. Tell me this isn't an E-Moto paradise. Look at this. Every direction you see, you can ride your bike as far as you can go, and look at it. There's just trails everywhere. This is the absolute perfect place to have an E-Moto such as the Altis Sigma. Let's use reverse. To use reverse, you just hold down the button up here, and then once you see it say reverse, you use the throttle, and the bike will go backwards. At first, I thought that was kind of a gimmick, but honestly, it's really useful. So an out-of-the-box E-Moto, this thing is like ridiculous. You get caught up on the specs, and then you actually ride one of these things, and you realize how fast they are. This thing is so powerful, it's crazy. So I have one of the first models, so this one is more susceptible to cold weather. It won't give you full power, and temperatures under 60 Fahrenheit or so. If you buy one of these now, the temperature range has been made wider, so you can get full power in more scenarios. But this one does limit your power output when it gets in colder weather. What it's doing is actually saving your battery from excessive wear. Only something to be concerned about on the early releases of the Altis Sigma. One thing I don't like too is I do like having a switch for the mode selectors. Now this one, you have to push this button and it doesn't go, it goes up and then back down. So you have to look at the screen to verify what level you're in. If you have a switch, you can know based on which level the switch is in. Boy, this is rocky. I'm in sport mode now and I have to be more careful with the throttle, that's for sure, because you can loop it out coming up. This is no problem Absolutely no problem climbing that, that's for sure. Another thing I really like about these things is what I think these bikes are perfect for is exploration. Like, if you live out here and you want to just come out and check out all these trails and see where things go, well, something like this is going to be absolutely perfect to help you, enable you to do that. You just see a trail and let's see where this trail goes. Eventually, we're making our way back into these mountains over here. Plenty of power. The throttle mapping is absolutely amazing. Super linear. The more you pull the throttle, the more power it gives you. Some of these throttles, it's like you just barely touch it and it gives you full power. This one is very, very linear. So even though this bike has more power than some of the other bikes, I feel like it's easier to loop on an e-ride than it is on this bike. Oh, check it out. This is what I was talking about, exploration. There's an old rock quarry. So if you love doing stuff like this, you want to just get out, check out your surroundings, go from point A to point B, make ridiculously tall climbs that you probably wouldn't do on a regular bike or even an e-bike because it's going to be very strenuous. This bike has the ability to go anywhere you're going to want to go. This will go on asphalt, this will go on dirt, this will go on anything. So these things are great for just all around. I feel like they kind of get a rap. It's just like the wheelie kids do these bikes and do wheelies everywhere. Great, you can do wheelies on these, but they are much more useful than that. It has gotten exponentially windier since I've been out here. So yeah, I love this bike overall, the Sigma, perfect for the Sigma mount lifestyle. You know, my wife's boyfriend used to make fun of me, laugh at me, but you know what now? Altis Sigma, you become the guy she tells you not to worry about. So we've been riding pretty good. I've done a mix of all the modes. We're at 10.5 miles in and I'm at 60% battery. This brakes on this bike, these brakes are absurd, man. I have no problems with the brakes. Oh, and that brings me to the regen. This bike has 4 levels of regen. It doesn't have a regen lever. That's one thing I really wish this bike had, was a regen lever. The regen on this bike is too aggressive, I think. Even on 1, it'll kind of slow you down too much. So I feel like they could have made the regens a little less aggressive on this bike. I find myself really just not using it. Unless I'm doing a prolonged descent where I feel like I need to limit my speed, even regen 1 on this will pretty much can bring you to a dead stop. So the regen's a little bit too much on this bike. So I have no regrets buying this. I had the option of any of the bikes, this, the 3.0 or the SR. I opted for the Sigma. I like the higher voltage, the higher speed, and mainly I like the look. So yeah, I don't regret buying this thing at all. I love this bike. I would ride it much more if I lived in an area where I didn't have to take it up and down stairs, or if I lived in an area like this where you could pretty much ride dirt bikes anywhere you want to go. And this bike's quiet. It's got kind of a cool sound to it from that gearbox. So like when you do give it some throttle, it feels almost like it's revving up, you know, it sounds cool. This bike just absolutely rips. I don't usually ride it this fast, but since I'm doing this video, I'm riding it fast and it's just fun. We're just eating this stuff up. We're in race. Let's see how fast we can go on this paved road. Maybe not going directly into the wind like we were earlier. Woo! Man, this thing is so fast. There we go, baby. This bike is so fun. Super stable. So there you guys have it. It's the Altis Sigma. Overall, I highly recommend this bike. I've had it for 3 months. I've ridden it quite a bit. I absolutely love this bike. I think it's the best looking E-Moto on the market. It's 98 volts. It'll do 70 miles an hour. And you can get yourself about 40 miles of range if you ride somewhat conservatively. Downsides are, this bike is heavy. If you need to bring this upstairs, you're going to have to be a big, strong Sigma male such as myself. But overall, guys, if you're interested in buying one of these, you can use the link in the description of this video. Coupon code SHOOTTHECHIT to go ahead and get yourself ODI riser bar of your choice for free with your purchase. Anyways, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.